With a full house of people here. Before we get started, I would like to check to see how many of you are actually from cities outside Cupertino. Can you raise your hands? Wow. Okay, let's get into a little bit more details. How many of you are from Sunnyvale? How many of you are from Palo Alto? Great. How many of you are from San Jose? Ooh, nice. So it looks like this is a hot issue. Oh yes, I'm so sorry. How many of you are from Santa Clara?
Los Altos.
Cupertino, yeah, Cupertino now. Thank you. Los Altos. Mountain View. Wow, we're going crazy here, huh? All the cities are coming to this town hall meeting. That's great. That shows this city development is a regional issue, and it's something that people really care nowadays. Okay. If I can ask, excuse me, I'm just going to sit down here. I'm hiding behind this. Stand here. Okay, let me just stand here. If I want to ask, the audience here, can you give me one top reason why you chose Silicon Valley to live? What could that be? Can somebody want to share some answer? Just shout out your answer.
Fourth generation.
Jobs. Great. I hear jobs, schools. Nobody mentioned about weather. Nobody can argue about that, right? Yes, definitely. I think schools and weather and jobs. Actually, those are the reasons I moved here too. I came from Montana, actually. It's a totally different world, right? It's very nice, but I got a little bit bored after 5 years staying there, so I came to California. But however, with the booming economy here in Silicon Valley, we have not only seen a lot of job opportunities, we also seen increasing housing price, crowded schools, and more congested roads. Making a living in Silicon Valley seems to be more challenging these days, as well as maintaining a good life quality. Do you agree?
Yes.
All cities around face the same problems. How do we ensure Silicon Valley can grow in a sensible way? Can the problems of housing, schools, and roads be mitigated, either temporarily or permanently? Are there any long-term resolutions to all those intertwined issues here? That's why we are having this town hall meeting today. We have invited 5 distinguished guests today, and they are all elected officials from different cities. Mr. Khanna is on his way. He will be here a little bit late. Let me introduce 4 city council members here. The first is Ms. Lydia Ko from Palo Alto. Lydia's civic engagement started with involvement in community volunteer programs. She joined her neighborhood association as the vice chair for their emergency preparedness and safety program, and was then recruited to becoming a leader of the citywide effort. This increased Lydia's awareness of the critical importance of community and led her to continuous efforts in community building activities, including ones for a variety of ethnic groups. As a side effect, Lydia gained exposure to a range of development issues. Lydia realized the difference between the truth and the whole truth. She thinks residents need better information and support not only to make the process fair, but so that they could understand the impacts on others and the trade-offs needed to produce a solution beneficial to the larger community. Lydia believes cities should enhance public life, and the value of a city is in making living pleasant for its residents who are the heart and soul of a community. And that infrastructure is for that purpose first and serving the economy second. Our second guest here is Mr. Chappie Jones from San Jose. Councilmember Jones was elected to the San Jose City Council in November of 2014 with close to 60% of the popular vote. He represents City Council District 1, the region of the West San Jose area that borders the cities of Campbell, Cupertino, Santa Clara, and Saratoga. Chappie was born in Sacramento and moved to San Jose in the 1990s. From an early age, his parents instilled in him a strong sense of fiscal responsibility, participating in civic activities, and bettering the neighborhood you live. He has practiced the same principles ever since. Prior to his election, Chappie worked in the private sector where he held sales management positions with Apple and AT&T, was the executive manager with Cornerstone Consulting and Technology, and owned a technology service business. Chappie has a bachelor's degree in economics from UC Davis and MBA degree from UC Berkeley. Our third guest today here is Mr. Michael Goldman from Sunnyvale. Michael Goldman was elected to the Sunnyvale City Council this past November, defeating an incumbent who had 6 times the campaign money. Actually, I was one of the supporters for Mr. Michael Goldman. Michael moved to the Bay Area from Ann Arbor, Michigan in 1982. He's married with 2 sons in college. Michael has degrees in physics and mathematics from the University of Wisconsin and Madison. His passions in local government are sensible policies for growth, which prioritize preserving neighborhood character, residents' needs, traffic, commuting, and especially the environment. Michael believes there are a lot of smart people in the U.S., and companies expanding should realize it is not necessary for every tech job in the U.S. to be in Silicon Valley. The last one, I think lots of people are familiar with, Mr. Stephen Shaw from Cupertino. Engineer, an 18-year resident of Cupertino, a 37-year Sierra Club member. He was an active school volunteer and continues to volunteer his time to help our public schools. Married to Karen Chu for 23 years, their children attend Eaton, Lawson, and Cupertino High. Stephen was elected to Cupertino City Council in 2016. After running one of the lowest cost campaigns in the city's history, his key to winning was more than 60 grassroots volunteers, a set of position papers that detailed his views on 37 different issues, his refusal to accept campaign funds from developers, and strong opposition from the Chamber of Commerce. Steve's key issues are affordable housing, the environment, traffic, school overcrowding, transportation, library services, bicycle and pedestrian safety, and transparency. He advocates a comprehensive approach to planning and embraces the principles of sensible growth. We have our Congressman Khanna here. I think I don't need any introduction. Let's welcome Mr. Khanna. Before we start our official town hall meeting of the panel discussion, Let me thank our sponsors. This town hall is sponsored by Spring Life Education Institute, IBMAX, and Dean Wei Fong Memorial Foundation. Spring Life Education Institute moved to Cupertino this year. It is a team that is dedicated to excellence in service, whether it is teaching or guiding students. They provide a multitude of educational services from college advising to tutoring in order to better prepare your child's education. The skills and knowledge your kids gain from Spring Life will become their whole life assets. The second one is IBMAX. The college counseling services of IBMAX help thousands of high school students develop their leadership skills and get into their desired schools across many states. Thanks to their expertise and advice, the latest college application season saw their students get accepted by numerous Ivy League schools and other top universities. Dean Wei Fong Foundation is a nonprofit organization based in Cupertino in 2013 in honor of Mr. Dean Wei Fong, a legendary political leader and prominent scholar in China. The mission of the foundation is to support public education and promote democratic and transparent governance, as Mr. Dean did throughout his career in China in the early 20th century. We are honored here to have Sherry, the CEO of Springlight Institute. Is she here? Thank you, Sherry. Thank you for your generous support. And Mr. Wei from IBMAX, is he here? That's okay. Mr. Wei from IBMAX frequently attend and support various initiatives. And Mr. Ding, who initiated the Dean Wei Fong Memorial Foundation, are you there? Thank you for your generous support. Ms. Ding is also a dedicated community leader. They're famous not only in Cupertino and in Taiwan, mainland China. They are passionate about issues at local and state levels and have been providing our next generation with opportunities to be involved in public affairs. And now let's welcome Mr. Khanna to give us a great speech about what he thinks about the development and growth in Silicon Valley and whether there's any long-term solution and how you will bring those issues into Congress. Thank you.
Introduction to live up to, but I appreciate being here. I'm sorry I was a little late. We just had a town hall in Newark, and I had told the organizers I'd love to come to just offer a few remarks, and then I'm here really to listen. Great to see some of the elected officials from my district, Michael Goldman and Chappie Jones and Steve Sharp, and I look forward to your comments on the panel. My comments, I'm really here to listen, but I did want to address two things. One, I had people emailing me and on my Twitter feed about showing up or not showing up, and how could you go to a forum like this, or how could you not go to a forum like this? And I said to myself, wow, we're such a divided country. I deal with this all the time in Washington. We ought not to be a divided community. We ought to have some sense of disagreeing and being respectful and thoughtful regardless of perspective. And so my first point is it would be great if we could find some way of having a conversation about issues that are deeply divisive in a way that respects all points of views and helps us come together as a community so we can actually be a model for the country and the types of thoughtful public debate that we need to have. The second point is, well, what do we do in terms of our balancing different needs? I have, of course, said that We have to have a place for affordable housing. I said that always, that we can't just be a community that is for the wealthy. We need to have some place for people who are teachers and artists and poets and folks who have to have some place to live. And we need to make sure that that's in areas that doesn't impede or add to traffic and doesn't add to people's congestion. So whether it's near transit-oriented areas, but we need more investment, of course, in our public infrastructure and public transportation. One thing I'm sure everyone here can agree on is that it's outrageous that Caltrain's funding is being eliminated by the Republicans in Congress. One thing that Anna Ashew and I are working towards and fighting for is to get funding for Caltrain, to get funding for BART, to get more funding into these areas where we have jobs, so that we have transit going to jobs, and that can alleviate some of the issues with traffic in the area and eliminate some of the demands on development. The third point I have is that we need to have transparency. And I think part of the challenge has been that folks feel that some of these decisions are not being made with citizen input, that we certainly shouldn't be having a role for money in non-transparent ways in politics. I personally don't take PAC and lobbyist money. I'm one of 6 members of Congress who does that, and I've introduced a bill to ban PAC money in Congress. I feel that we need to have that same sense of transparency in local government, so that people feel that the debates are on the merits and not based on interests coming in and doing things. And finally, I'll talk about my trip to Appalachia. I was in Hal Rogers' district, Eastern Kentucky. It's a 25% plus Republican district. And the Politico had an article about the differences in our districts. My district that I'm proud to represent with all of you is 50% Asian American, 10% African American, and 10% Latino American, significant African American population, and Caucasian. Hal Rogers' district, 99% Caucasian. The district I represent is almost 50% foreign born. Hal Rogers' district was 99% born in the United States. I've been in Congress 3 months. He's been in Congress 30 years. And I went down there and was treated with a great amount of enthusiasm. And folks in Eastern Kentucky wanted to know what it's like to be in Cupertino, what it's like to have technology prospects for kids and technology jobs. They were proud of their call, but they're very sober-headed about what the jobs are going to be of the future. And they want to make sure that their kids and their people there have those opportunities. So while we need to make sure that we have jobs here, we also have an obligation, in my judgment, to think about where else around the state and in the country we can invest, and to make sure that we are mindful of the people, whether in the African American community, Latino community, Native American community, rural America, that aren't participating in the economic success of the technology economy. And I believe we have a particular obligation to invest and think about those issues. So with that, I'm here. I will be here for the forum to listen and happy to listen to concerns both afterwards at my town hall or in my offices. But I'm looking for the experts who deal with these issues every day and their perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. Now let's jump into our official panel discussion here. We will have a panel discussion first. We will, have a talk with all the city council members about the issues, 4 issues, surrounding the Silicon Valley right now. We have the jobs, office spaces, we have housing issues, we have school issues, and we have transportation issues. And later on, we will have an open question and answer session. So save your questions and then ask those council members, give them a hard time. Okay, now let's hear about the council members' thoughts on the issues and their visions about the future growth of their cities. Please bear in mind that all these city council members came from cities that are different in size, population density, demographics, availability of land, and transportation system. Their views will be different. So our first topic will be about jobs and office spaces. I would like to ask our panelists what you feel about keep adding more office spaces to your city and whether more office spaces will benefit your city and community in the short term and in the long term. Whoever wants to jump in first.
Okay. So I was at one of Roe's first meetings, I think before he was even sworn in, and I was really impressed because he echoed the comments someone made earlier that not every single job in the world needs to be in Silicon Valley. It's okay to have jobs in Concord or Hayward or Appalachia and in places that have the transportation infrastructure and that have affordable housing. And it's almost heresy to ever say, well, maybe it's not a terrible thing if such and such company doesn't come to Sunnydale or Palo Alto or Cupertino. Maybe it's okay if they go to a place where their employees can afford a house and where the schools are not overcrowded. I think we really need to take a systems approach to growth. We need to consider transportation, consider housing, consider how crowded the schools are. And we're not really obligated to, I think some developers have an overblown sense of entitlement that we are obligated as a city. We're obligated as a city to give them whatever they want when they buy a piece of property, and we're not. We're not obligated to rezone anything so they can make a lot more profit. I mean, I know they're in business for a profit, but as city council people, it's our obligation to do what's best for the city, not for the developers. That's what I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank Better Cupertino for inviting me to participate on this panel, and for everybody coming out today who has an interest in what's going on, not only in Cupertino, but in our region. So it's great to see you out here today and participating in this town hall. When I was first elected, I went through a process of going from sheer euphoria to sheer terror. and let me tell you why. Immediately after I got into office, and I started to become more educated in some of the very complex issues that we're facing, not only in San Jose, but throughout Silicon Valley, I felt like San Jose was caught between a rock and a chainsaw. And the reason why I say that is because San Jose is the only major city in the country that has a larger nighttime population than a daytime population. Our revenues, a lot of our revenues come from commercial activity, sales tax, business tax, and all the other revenues that come from those types of commercial activities. Cities like Palo Alto have 4 times the revenue from commercial activity than the city of San Jose. Cupertino has 3 times the revenue from commercial activity than the city of San Jose. San Jose exports people, but we provide the housing for a lot of Silicon Valley. It costs more money to provide services for the residential residents than it does businesses. So you can see where San Jose has had effectively a structural financial issue over the last decades because we do not have enough commercial activity, enough businesses coming into San Jose that are going to generate those revenues to provide the services that my citizens are demanding. parks, libraries, police, fire. All those services come from commercial activity. And if San Jose is not more aggressive in terms of getting more businesses into San Jose, we're going to be constantly in a situation where we're going to have these financial shortfalls. So any businesses or business activity or commercial activity that Sunnyvale doesn't want, Palo Alto doesn't want, we'll take it. But what that means is that we'll actually have to have the infrastructure, the buildings, for those workers to come and work. So that's why, as a city policy, we've been so aggressive in terms of trying to drive more business activity, getting more businesses into San Jose. And so if you turn away business, if you have an attitude where, it's okay for companies to send their employees off to, Texas or Oregon, that's okay. But you have to understand that it's impossible to manage an economy that specifically. If you have policies that are going to choke off business expansion and business growth, it's hard to create that floor. You can have a situation where we choke it off, and the Googles and Facebooks and all these other companies will start exporting their employees to other states. And then you're going to have a situation where your children, your grandchildren, and even yourself. I mean, think about, all of us who work in technology, think about how tech companies come and go, right? They get bought out, they have mergers, they go out of business, and you always had the opportunity, if you were in that situation, to go to another high-tech company. It was almost seamless. But imagine if that opportunity is not there, where you want to change companies, your child wants to have a job here in the Silicon Valley so they can work and not have to move off to Tennessee or Arkansas, then we're going to have those jobs here in the Silicon Valley.
Thank you. I've been gently reminded that I talk too much. So I'm going to get to the first thing first, which is I really want to say thanks to Khanna for going to Kentucky, one of the most conservative parts of the place, the beautiful state of Kentucky. Because I'm old enough, I don't buy green bananas anymore, and I have never seen this country so divided since the Vietnam War. So we need to build more bridges, not walls, and I really thank Ro for doing that. The other thing is, I'm not actually from the Midwest. I moved here from Ann Arbor, Michigan, but I did spend 15 years of my life there, and it's a beautiful place, and people who live there love it. And the hardworking farmers of Wisconsin and the auto workers of Michigan and the steel workers of Indiana spend $200,000 for their wonderful state universities like Wisconsin, Madison, Ann Arbor to educate engineers, and half of them come here. We're basically sucking all the innovative, creative people that can transform the Rust Belt back into a vibrant place that it used to be. It used to be, going to Detroit was like, wow, going to Manhattan and the high life and everything. So we can revitalize that. Everyone here at some point came from somewhere else. Whether it's from on a boat for a plane from China, or in my case, on a boat from my grandfather's case, a boat from Russia. We're one country. We really need to work together. It's not healthy for us to have all these jobs here, and we can't handle it. And it is very doable, very feasible to fix a lot of this. Chappie's worried about revenue. Every city worries about revenue. Money, money, money. Certainly the retirement crisis is a big factor, but even before that came in, every city was trying to get money. We can solve that. When you buy something on Amazon, the tax money you pay doesn't go to your city, it goes to the county, and then it's divided out among all the cities. We could do that on a regional basis with the jobs. Every city, my city included, wants that industry moving there because we get so much revenue from the company, especially from the headquarters. We actually get sales tax on the headquarters. That's why Apple headquarters are in Cupertino. Cupertino will do anything for that. But we could, we could have a regional thing where we can share the wealth, so to speak. If you look at other places like Europe, they do that. The other thing is transportation. A friend said, she was really outraged that it was the cleaning lady who cleans houses in Los Altos can't afford to live there. Well, that's true in Manhattan. The cleaning lady who cleans the lower Manhattan offices can't afford to live there either. But it's not a problem because she just gets on the subway, reads the paper, and she's there. So do we have a housing crisis or do we have a transportation crisis? And if you look at the percentage of people that commute not by car but by public transit, the one thing that jumps out as you go down around the bay is BART really makes a difference. Now San Jose is late at getting on the game. Way back decades ago, before Chappie was there, the city fathers said we don't want BART because then everyone will take it to San Francisco because it's a cooler town than San Jose. Well, making a city great by making it hard to get to is not working out quite the way they thought. So they're getting on the bandwagon, or they're going to get BART. We're going to get BART. But in the meantime, we got to think regionally. We can't think Sunnyvale. We can't think Cupertino. We can't think San Jose. We got to think we are one big region. The venture capitalists up in Palo Alto do not want to travel more than a few minutes to get to their little startups. The startups, once they become successful like Facebook, see no particular reason to leave. They're set. And so everyone's commuting in. This is not a healthy way to do it. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. In Palo Alto, I would like to hear what Lydia thinks about this.
The office development.
Office development, yes.
So I wanted to say, I am actually very reluctant politician. I'm still wincing every time somebody mentions that I'm a politician. But here I am elected, so I'll do my part. In terms of office development in Palo Alto, we welcome it, but it does have to balance out all the other elements in our community. At this point, we have office development. It is mostly headquarters. We do not receive a revenue from those mostly, except for the impact fees when it just might have started up. And it continues to take more from the community than it does give back. Some of it has to do with housing, has to do with transportation. And this is all, in terms of reducing greenhouse gases and on a bigger picture in the state level, trying to get lesser commute so everybody lives here. And what that also brings is our housing crisis, gentrification. Just as simple as that is gentrification. People are displaced because they're competing with wages by workers who are subsidized by a lot of these large companies. The companies encourage their workers in order to fit into getting out of their cars, to live closer to their jobs, and therefore they're subsidizing their rents. And when you have a community serving worker, our teachers, or perhaps, a retailer in our community who is renting and who has to go up against somebody who is a office tech worker, and they're subsidized. There's no way they can compete for that apartment at a price that is affordable to them. So hence they're going to have to move further away. And in this sense, we really have to think about the impacts of what we're promoting. A lot of times I think as city officials, we're also very much seduced by these companies. When Facebook comes around, everybody is just so Google-eyed over Facebook. Oh my gosh, Facebook is right behind us. Do you know how much sales tax we can get from them? Well, they have their own cafeterias. They have their own masseuse. They have their own dry cleaners that delivers. And I'm sorry, what does it really do for our community? Now they're going into housing. They're building their own housing for their own employees. How about the community serving employees? we're losing even retail. Our retailers cannot even stay in Palo Alto and operate a retail business because a lot of that office space has been, a lot of the retail space has been converted to office space. What is a vital community then? Is it of expensive restaurants and coffee shops? Is it that we can subsidize our sales tax by $4 muffins? Or how much is the coffees now at Starbucks and all those fancy? So is that what we're becoming is what I want to know. And then what does our children learn? That was a rhetorical question. You answered it. But, basically we have to have a balance. I really think that, in terms of having office space in each of our cities, office buildings, even on the impact fees, we recently at Palo Alto decided to increase our impact fees in order to be able to build affordable housing. Well, when it finally came before council, the councils that were very much for development and encouraging development office space, where we raised the office space development impact fee to $60, they reduced it to $35. So if we're really intent of putting in affordable housing, then let's put the action behind our words. When we look at when we're looking at how fast do we want to do this, how fast before we help the people before they move out of the area, I think there's many ways to do it. For us in Palo Alto, our former mayor Pat Byrd had actually identified, one of the biggest costs to housing is the land itself. And we have a few service parking lots in Palo Alto that belongs to the city. And it can be very easily be converted to use for affordable housing. But we need the funds in order to construct those buildings. And so therefore, again, I need to see the action behind our words if we're really going to do this. And that doesn't just go for the cities. It goes regional. It goes to the state. The state needs to come down with that too. But, the state needs to support and endorse that. And another thing the state is doing that they're not recognizing is a lot of the laws that they're coming down with is top down. They're deregulating and making it more flexible for building. And I can understand that, but when you start becoming that flexible, then we run into a lot of issues. It's the consistency across board. For example, ADUs, accessory dwelling units, that's come about. Those are supposed to be affordable units in order to help workers in our community when they build these office developments and buildings. So at what point does that start intruding into the neighborhood sanctity and harmony? We have in our city the Human Resources Committee, and they're constantly promoting inclusiveness, be neighborly, help a neighbor, build community. Yet if our city council pushes for policy that is not consistent with that, then we won't have harmony, because the kind of policy that we're pushing down that is also state mandated, what happens with that is that when you don't require parking for the ADU that you're putting into your backyard, it ends up becoming filled up. Your street is filled up with cars that does not have their own parking, and now you have parking issues on your street, and before you know it, residential parking permits are imposed upon you. So is that something that we want to live with? I think our city calls the RPPs and the Transportation Management Associations and the Transportation Demand Managements as successes. I wouldn't call them successes. I would call them unintended consequences when you're not looking at planned growth, when you're not looking at growth that are controlled and thoughtful and meaningful to the community.
I feel I opened a can of worms here. Lydia, thank you. And you actually already answered lots of my, no, it's okay. Answered lots of the things I want to talk about for the next topic, which is about the housing. Job growth leads to more housing requirements, especially the affordable housing units. And now let's explore details about the housing crisis here. I want to ask all the panelists to think, do you really think building more high-density housing units will bring down the housing price and make housing more affordable in Silicon Valley? And second, if more housing units to be built, what kind of housing unit do you typically prefer? You want it for rent? You want it for sale? And then the third one is about affordable housing. I want to understand that each city have a plan to develop and implement those below market rate affordable housing. Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is a very hot button issue here in Cupertino, of course. And I know the people that I've dealt with when I was running for office, we are very strong supporters of below market rate for sale housing. And there's several reasons that we like for sale housing. First of all, the school impact is less over time. Because what happens with rental housing, no one is going to stay in Cupertino paying $4,000 a month rent once their kids are off to college. They'll move out, and another family will move in, and their kids, 2 or 3 kids, will go to the schools. So the average student impact is very much higher. Second, you don't build community when people are coming and going like that. You want long-term residents that are committed to the city and that want to be involved. And third is parcel taxes. Berkeley recently, well, in 2016, Berkeley passed what was called BSEP, Berkeley's, I don't remember the acronym definition, but it is a tax for schools, and it's 37 cents per square foot for individual residences, for apartment complexes, and for commercial properties. So everyone is paying 37 cents a square foot. The problem now, if a developer builds a complex with 200 apartments, they pay 1 parcel tax. If it's 200 condos, there's 200 parcel taxes. So you can see what the issue here is. But the developers, of course, they prefer the rental right now. It's very high rents. There's a benefit in property tax. There's other benefits when it comes to requirements for condominiums, like guaranteeing against latent defects for 10 years. So, but it's not up to the developers. It's what our cities want them to build. And unfortunately, there's been this narrative from some people that we must build rental housing because in 50 years, the complex will be deteriorating and we'll only have one owner and we can tear it down and build something else. So I don't believe there's any validity to that, and I've talked to people from other countries. They say, no, when you have for sale housing, first of all, it's better maintained so it lasts longer. And second, it actually is possible to get owners together when it is time to tear it down to build something new. And then someone else said something to me, and I kind of made sense. They said, some people don't want for sale housing for the very reason you do want it. You want involved residents that vote and are committed to the community long term. And there's some people that don't want that because it threatens their political power. So, I talked to a developer recently who applied for a general plan amendment in Cupertino for Scandinavian designs. And he said, well, what do you want to see there? And I said, I want to see for sale housing with a really high percentage of below market rate. And he said, I can do that, but I was told I can't by the city. I said, come back and try again because it's a new city council and I think you might be able to push that through this time. Thank you.
So first of all, I want to kind of reframe certain things. There was, I know a discussion before this town hall that there'd be an exchange of viewpoints in terms of people who are pro-growth or anti-growth, pro-development, anti-development. I actually look at my job, and actually my colleagues up here on this panel, is we're in the business of being pro-solution. And there might be a disagreement in terms of what that solution looks like, but I think that, hopefully I can speak for all of us in terms of we're looking to try to find the best solutions to solve some of these very complex problems. San Jose is a victim of out-of-control growth. There was a city manager named Dutch Hammond who had a vision of making San Jose just like Los Angeles. I know, I cringe too. And so what that meant was just sprawl, just building single-family homes, low-density development, just as far as you can go. Our political leadership realized that that was not a recipe for success. So what we did is we created a green belt. So we created a green line that said you could not have development outside this green line. Another thing that we did is, and as I referred to earlier when I was speaking, is that we are trying to protect land that's designated for commercial. Because once you lose commercial land, you'll never get it back. So I just want to kind of frame that in terms of the constraints that San Jose has. So we can't build out into the protected land. We can't build over commercial land. So where are we going to build to be able to accommodate upwards of 400,000 new residents over the next 25 years? We're talking about, our children, our grandchildren, people coming in to work, people coming in from other countries to be a part of this amazing place that we have here called Silicon Valley. Where is that talent going to live, going to spend their time? Well, what we've done is after I got past my state of sheer terror coming on the council, I jumped into action and realized that we need to have a plan. And so the city of San Jose's general plan is to create what they call urban villages, really trying to intensify the space on major roads and corridors where those people can live. And so I created two groups. One was called the Winchester Advisory, or is called the Winchester Advisory Group, and the other one is called the Stevens Creek Advisory Group. And it's made up of residents, businesses, developers, and other stakeholders to participate in a very public, transparent process to come up with a plan and solutions to address the concerns of the neighborhood and the community. As elected officials, we're in a really tough position because our job is to represent you and your interests and your needs and your desires right now. But also our job too is to be leaders and try to come up with solutions that are going to impact 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now in terms of those next generations. And how do you balance the needs of our current needs now with the needs of the city in the future? We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past in terms of having all this low density, people driving long distances. I want to ask a question. Who has experienced just the crazy increase of traffic over the last 3 or 4 years? I can tell you that with all the proposed developments in West San Jose that I'm involved with, we have not built one thing yet. So unless it's that IHOP that's on the corner of Miller and Bollinger's that's creating all this traffic, it's coming from outside of our community, and people are using our West San Jose, the West Valley, as a commute corridor. So there's a programming construct called if then. So for you programmers, you probably can relate to that. So if we do nothing, if we don't have any development, we don't have any high density development, we just do nothing, then will everything just stay the same and we'll be okay, and it's all good, and we can all enjoy the rest of our lives without having to worry about it? No, we know that's not going to happen because we know that traffic is going to increase. We know that housing affordability is going to get worse because people are still coming They want a place to live, and they're gonna do whatever is necessary to live here. If we don't, and going back to your original question, if we don't build more housing, and if we don't do it in a smart way, and we don't have, if we don't have intensity and density on the major corridors where we can have transit, buses, light rail, other transportation, then we're gonna be in a situation where the basic underpinning of our society is gonna suffer. Where are our teachers gonna live? Our firemen, our barista at Starbucks? They're not gonna commute from, Tracy, for a minimum wage job. I can tell you personally, just a personal example, that my 92-year-old mother-in-law moved in with us in December, and we've really been struggling to be able to find a caregiver to come in to take care of her. I mean, so those are the kind of things that are going to impact your life, the if-then equation, are the things that are going to impact your life if we do nothing. So I think it really comes down to what does smart growth look like? And I think that's where we can have the debate. But, Econ 101 is that if you increase the supply, it's gonna reduce the cost, because you don't have as much demand, and you have supply that's meeting that demand or exceeding that demand. We need to build more market rate housing, we need to build more affordable housing, we need to build low income housing, we need to build all of it, and it has to go somewhere. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there's an attraction to say, and even I sometimes want to say this, it's like, I'm okay with more development, but just develop it somewhere else. Well, that development is happening all around us. In all the cities, there's development in terms of commercial development, housing development. So none of us are on an island. And so if we don't come up with these strategies to address this housing crisis that we're in, again, things are going to get much worse. And we want to make things better. We want to solve the problems.
Michael, before Michael speaks, I want to ask all the panelists who are not talking, just press off your microphone because they are having some background noise over there. That's good. Great. Michael, your turn.
Okay, I've heard this build more and lower the price a lot. That is true if you're building widgets. You pay $1 billion to make a factory, and the more widgets you make, the lower the price. Land is not something you build more of. So what happens, if it were true that building more housing and denser lowered the price, then Hong Kong would be really cheap. And lower Manhattan would be just, $1 a day, what the hell. What happens is the land gets more valuable. I respect the economics, but that everyone's learned. But this is a specialty. It's called urban economics. I've been learning a lot about it. And you want to go look it up. There's a lot of good slides to tell you. It's been looked at since the 1800s by Ricardo, and it's the center of the city, like down Lower Manhattan, or the Loop in Chicago, even the center of Los Angeles is the densest, and it is the most expensive. As you get out to further and further away, it gets less and less expensive and less dense. The greater density means greater expense, period. I'm not going to argue that, that's just a fact. So now the question, so that answers that question. The other question, though, is what about people that really can't afford it? When we talk about affordable housing, well, everything is affordable for the people that live there. If the average person working for Google makes $175,000 a year, a couple of other companies sort of match it. If you have two people making that kind of money, double income, $350,000, okay, multiply by 3, got $1 million mortgage, save a little money for a while, $1.5 million house is affordable. So what we really are looking at is a lot of money in a very concentrated area. If we keep on trying to build higher and higher and just kind of randomly, what we're getting is a lot of job centers. We don't have something like Lower Manhattan where everyone commutes into to that place from all over, with the subways built in the 1890s, the Long Island Railroad built in 1834. We have basically a lot of job centers and people commuting. This is not going to work. We need to, that's why I keep coming back to the region. We got to get the region working together so that San Jose could be like our focal point. They would have all the high-rise, the nice skyline, all the good, happy stuff that goes with that. And we could have, the kind of low-level industrial, commercial stuff, the programming shops and things. But we can't all be New York City. We can't. It's simply not possible. In fact, other cities like Chicago who would love to be New York City can't do it either. There's only one New York City in the world. And it's the only real city in the Western Hemisphere. So what we have to do is figure out how we can, manage this unusual growth. Let's face it, it's a bit of a bubble. Not as bad as 2007, but it's a bubble, and we know it's going to pop at some point, or maybe just go sideways for a decade. So we have to make sure that what we're looking at in 10 years is not something that we're going to regret. If we keep on building, we're going to, at some point, you build dense enough, you start getting slums. You're fitting more people in, and they're just there to make a paycheck, and as soon as they can, they're going to cash out and move to Portland or Seattle. I know people that do that, and they're never been happier. Austin is filled with them, Denver. It would be better if we could somehow get some of these companies to say, well, if we can expand to India, maybe we can expand to Indiana. If we can expand, I know one company has a office in Azerbaijan. They are the only engineering company there. If you're an Azerbaijani engineer, you work for that one company, and a friend of mine calls it, stays up until midnight and coordinates with them once a week. We can do that. We can certainly spread the wealth around. Other cities around the country would love to have our problems, but it is our problem nonetheless. And we can't keep building higher and higher and higher. People, getting back to what people really mean when they refer to affordable housing, is housing for people that are not making Google-type salaries. There are a lot of them. I never. Well, okay. I couldn't afford the house I live in now. But you have to look at some trade-offs. When you put up affordable housing, there's a years of long wait. So if someone gets into affordable housing, say in Sunnyvale, they're just like everyone else. They change jobs every 4 or 5 years. They're not going to get on a waiting list, move to affordable housing over in Fremont. It's a couple of years waiting list over there too, so they're going to commute. We're back to the community. They're locked in to that affordable housing. We really want to think about where we build that. If every little district, every little neighborhood with that happens to somehow incorporate itself, becomes a job center and has to build so much affordable housing, everyone's commuting everywhere. It is not going to make it better. Self-driving cars are just not going to work. There are limits to growth. New York City hit roughly 8 million in 1952, I think. It has basically stayed that way. We have to accept that growth does not go on forever, and maybe we should say, okay, this is enough. I don't think we can handle anymore. If we keep cramming more people in with all these little ADUs and all this really micro housing and stuff, we will get slums. That's what happens. I've seen it happen over the many, many years. The area around U of Chicago was at one time one of the richest parts of the city. John D. Rockefeller built U of Chicago there because it was such a wealthy part. It's now there's one of the poorest parts. People kept cramming more and more people in, and after a while it just wasn't a place to live. We want to keep this a pleasant place to live. That's first and foremost. And if you look at New York City, on my blog, I've got pictures of Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx, which look really nice. They're tree-lined streets and they're single-family houses. This idea that somehow New York City is all high-rise apartments and we've got to emulate them is not true. New York City doesn't do that. Why should we? Thank you.
I just want to ask a question. Who here has lived in other cities in America or other countries where that city had high density? Thank you. And in those cities that you lived in, did the high density automatically create slums? Was it?
No.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask that question. That was it. Thank you.
When are the public meetings? I mean, it's already 10 after 4. How much time are you going to allow us to speak? Because you're just telling us the problems what you've already done.
We're going to continue for another 15 minutes of panel
I
discussion.
think we should be given some time to speak also.
All right, now let's move on to the next, hot issue here, transportation. Everybody talked about transportation here. Sorry, Lydia. Yeah.
I just want to add one little thing, I won't take very long, but along the lines of building housing, it's certainly housing, we need housing in order to accommodate all the job growth that we're seeing and create a balance. But I think that more importantly, we need to look at the kind of city that we live in. Does that city actually accommodate high rises, or are they more a suburban town where it's single family homes, etc.? And yes, granted, certain areas in a city can accommodate a little bit more of a higher density, but up to what amount? Then in addition to that, we value in the Bay Area and along the peninsula, we value greatly our open spaces and parks.
Yes.
And it has been proven, that it is a stress reliever, it is good for the health, and it creates good air. So I think that, I think in most cities, at least I know in Palo Alto, we have a per resident to how much acres of parks open space we require. Right now, Palo Alto is at a deficit. And so therefore, I think that we should actually push forth that with every resident that's added to a city, we need to increase the park, and that should be top priority. In addition to the schools, and in addition to what Councilmember Goldman had said, is how much growth is there going to be? How much do we have to take on? How much does each city not look at the different impacts that come along with the growth, whether it's housing or office development, jobs? So I'm sorry it took so long.
Lydia, thank you.
I attend the water district meetings, and I was at one a week and a half ago, and they kind of slipped it in, and it wasn't that noticeable, but they said, oh, by the way, even if there's no additional drought, we will be at a deficit of water if we continue at the same growth rate, and there will be mandatory cutbacks in water usage below what we even have now. And so we really need to take a systems approach and not just do things blindly without thinking of the consequences.
Before we move on to the transportation, I have one last question for all of you guys. Do you have a number in your mind about the jobs to housing ratio in your city?
I do. We have a 3-to-1.
Wow.
And then we have our neighbor in Stanford, which is even higher. It's a 3.2-to-1. So, and Stanford naturally affects Palo Alto. So, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So I was researching, I was looking at this earlier today. So in Cupertino, in 2020, it's predicted to be 1.4-to-1. And currently, in 2010, we were at 1.29-to-1. That's the number of jobs, the number of housing units per employees. So we're not far off of the Bay Area. And I know recently ABEX kind of changed the formula a little bit, but it was about 1.4-to-1, which was their goal.
Thank you.
Sunnyvale is 1.44. That's Caltrans said that's pretty much ideal. However, we had a big fight and I lost, and city planning wants to make it 1.73, which already we are at a situation where if every Sunnyvale resident took a job only in Sunnyvale, we would still have to bring in 18,000 people to fill the remaining jobs. This is just going to make it a lot worse. The only way you can get to Sunnyvale is 101, 280, and 270, was it 273. I don't see, 237, sorry. 237, I don't see those as being really optimal for more traffic. Thank you.
Traffic, how about San Jose?
So I'm bringing up the rear here. Our number is 0.84.
Whoa.
So those commuters that are driving up Palo Alto's number and Sunnyvale's number and Cupertino's number are coming from San Jose. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of those residents are either coming from farther south, Morgan Hill, Gilroy, South San Jose, and they're coming through our area to get to those jobs in those cities.
Thank you. I think that probably partially explains, the differences in each city, and each state has a different situation, and then they have a different growth role or goal, I think, in the future. We're here today just trying to understand the different issues from different cities. We're not really thinking which one's right and which one's wrong, and we're here to share the ideas, and hopefully everybody, can have a better knowledge about city development at the end of this session. And I think we're going to jump into the transportation. I'm going to skip the school part. Transportation looks like has been mentioned a lot of times in our discussion today. And my personal experience, I have worked in Mountain View, San Jose, and now I work in San Francisco. I feel sorry for myself because my commute is actually 4 hours every day on the road. And I personally, I prefer to work in San Jose because the driving there is anti-traffic. It's against the traffic. But as a regional issue here, and I know we probably have panelists disagree on the development, on the housing issues, but I feel that all the panelists will have a violent agreement on the transportation issue because we don't think this is a city issue anymore. This is a regional issue. Everybody, every city needs to look at this from a bigger picture. So I want to ask our panelists, what do you think could be a potential solution to mitigate the worsening traffic condition? What do you have in mind about the future public transit system, maybe in Silicon Valley in 10 years? And where do we get the funding to build those comprehensive transportation system? Can you think of any tax, any tax benefits to tax more working class people to provide that kind of funding? Thank you.
Okay. Well, Roe is going to get us all the funding. Yeah. So the funding issue is pretty much solved. We don't have to worry about that anymore. One day I went on one of these transit websites to check how long it would take me to get from Cupertino to where I work in Fremont by different means. So by car it was 23 minutes. By bicycle, it was 95 minutes, and by public transit, it was 230 minutes. So, with 3 buses, and I work in an area near the new Warm Springs BART station, and not far from one of the Tasman light rail stations, but there's no bus at all into the industrial park area of southern Fremont, so those are really not even viable. And with no offense to Chappie Jones, a lot of the BTA issues are because BTA is so San Jose centric. The light rail was built to bring people to downtown San Jose, and unfortunately not a lot of people have a desire to work or their companies aren't in downtown San Jose, other than perhaps Adobe. I'm sure there's a few others I've missed. I don't know what the solution is to light rail. I'd love to see it up Stevens Creek Boulevard if they're going to put in all these urban villages.
Because I live here, you're my representative. They're only interested in trains and buses. I suggested a plan from Europe, that Europe has got all kinds of new technologies about all different kinds of ways to control transit. You are all representatives. You should all call the transit people and find out what you can do. Then you go back to Roe and say, look, we need a portion of this to do this. No one's doing that. Nobody, anywhere. Okay, and that's what you need to do. All right?
Shall we continue with our panel session here? We can save the questions. We can save the questions, okay?
Okay, let me finish with my last quote, which I love. And it's from someone, I think, someone in South America. It says, a developed country is not a place where the poor have cars, it's where the rich use public transportation. And Michael Goldman was talking about New York City, and it's true. People live on Long Island, and with the Long Island Railroad, or Staten Island, or Queens, or the Bronx, or Brooklyn, or New Jersey. That's true, and they can take the PATH train, or the subway, or the Long Island Railroad, and the ferry.
Cabs, most people travel.
No.
I've been to New York City, and that's what I do.
So, it's, transportation is an integral part of solving the housing problem as well.
So Congressman Rowe, Khanna, I would like to suggest that you go to Congress and ask them to have comprehensive transportation plan, looking at long-term strategic planning in terms of putting funding behind subways throughout our state so that it can move us from one area to another area, and then consolidating all of the different transportation agencies so that one is not working against the other and taking funding away from another and making it very, very difficult to know what the right hand is doing and what the left hand is doing. If we have one consolidated transportation system, SamTran or SamCar and all the VTAs and MTCs and all of those, consolidated so that they have one system running throughout our region and throughout different regions, then we would have a more matched up system where it connects with other cities, with other counties, with other regions. Right now, I know VTA is stopping right at the Santa Clara line and not going into Menlo Park. But we work at different counties. We move to different counties. And we can't have this kind of system stop in the middle. And, Caltrain is a great system. But when they're working where they have to find funding from 3 different counties, and if one county decides that they want to put money towards something else, then Caltrain is out of luck from one of the counties not giving them money. And it affects the other 2 counties. So we need a consolidated plan. And this comes from state. It cannot be pushed unfunded onto each of the cities or the counties.
First of all, I want to say, Steve, no offense taken on the shot at San Jose. When we think about transportation, I kind of look at it as a giant game of chicken. And what I mean by that is, I want you to take public transportation so that the freeways are clear, so I can drive my car as a solo driver to my place of employment, have my car sit there for 8 hours, be a solo driver going back to my home. And I want to have that convenience, and I want you to be on public transportation. People are rational. People vote with their feet. And if it's more convenient for you, more effective for you to take your car to work, you're going to drive. If it's more convenient, more effective for you to take public transportation, you're going to take public transportation. The reason why people aren't flocking to public transportation is because it's not convenient. It's not efficient. So as someone who's on the VTA board, these are the kind of issues that we're tackling every day. So VTA has already introduced their next network, totally revamping their bus system. And the goal of that is to maximize the bus routes that are most efficient, so that instead of you going out and waiting for a half an hour for the bus to come, or having no idea when the bus is coming, They want to have faster headways where you just walk out and a bus is coming no longer than 15 minutes. And if you can do that, and if you have those buses and the public transportation going to where you work, and it's efficient, it's easy, then there's a higher likelihood that you're going to take that type of transportation. The other piece of this too is land use and planning. And then this goes back to the other conversation about density and housing. If we can get people closer to where they work, then it goes a long way in terms of solving the public transportation equation. If you can take a short bus to your job, or if you can walk or ride your bike, and it's convenient, then those workers are not going to be on the road clogging up the freeways. So it's partially land use, and it's partially smart transportation planning.
I know it will work, because I lived in San Diego for 9 months, and never used my car. There was a minibus that came to the place, the bus ran every 10 minutes. I could go to the North County, there was a go to the North. I could even go to Mexico. Why can't the Valley Transportation, why can't they get it together and make the bus system work? I mean, they do it other places. I mean, it's working.
Do what I do. Do what I do. Go to the meeting. Join me. Right now.
So just
We finished.
Let's have Michael finish his speech here.
Here's the panelists.
So, I'm just saying, I know public transportation. I looked at on the bus once. Let the panelists.
Let's have Michael talk first, okay? Thank you.
Okay, a couple of basics about BTA. A BTA is absolutely San Jose centric. I'm just fine with that. Everyone go to San Jose. If you own a company, please put all your expansion downtown San Jose. My wife works for Oracle, a big building in San Jose. She's no problem with that. And the only problem is there aren't enough companies, so going out for lunch, she ends up going to Mountain View with her group on Fridays. So a couple of basic facts. There is what's called fare recovery, how much you get back for how much you get from fare. For every BTA fare recovery is 10%. That means you buy county, district, whatever, to set property tax. BTA gets a portion of that. You can't raise it above a certain amount, so we're stuck with that. The realignment that Chappie is talking about is cutting down the number of routes so that the routes that they do have are much faster. And I talk to people all the time and say, I can't use it anymore. I'm a student going to West Valley. I can't get there. I don't have a card. So it's a trade-off. San Diego has 40% fare recovery. I asked the ETA rep how they did that, and he said, well, what they did was they went totally private. They laid off all the regular workers, busted the union, such as it was, and now everyone's basically a contract worker. So, okay, pays your money, gets your choice, but it's still only 40%. So you buy a $2 ticket, and the county chips in, I don't know, about $6, I guess. $4. BART has the best fare recovery, about 64%. So you buy you buy $6 BART ticket, and the county only has to chip in another $4 to make it viable. Public transit is great. I grew up sort of in New York City. I started grade school, preschool in Manhattan. We moved out to Long Island, and I started high school there. I went, and would go into New York City with my mother when she was taking classes at Fordham on the Long Island Railroad. It's nice. I commuted by rail when I lived outside Washington, D.C. I knew one guy commuted from West Virginia. He had a great time. He made sure he got an Amtrak, not a regular commuter rate, around 9, and he just ate breakfast, read the paper, and fine. So public transit is great if you can get it, but it doesn't always get you where you want. If you're in say Lower Brooklyn, near the Atlantic, and you want to get to Lower Manhattan, no problem. You're there in 20 minutes. You want to get from Lower Brooklyn to Upper Queens, hour and a half by public transit. It's faster to drive, even with the horrible, horrible traffic. New York has great public transit, best in the Western Hemisphere. It still has also the worst commutes. So you've got the best public transit system in the Western Hemisphere, which we are never, ever going to match. We cannot match it. They started in 1890. We can't get BART here. So forget about public transit. It's nice. I love it. And biking too. I bicycled for years, and I had a wonderful time. I even bicycled through Madison in the snow. It was -20 outside. But I wouldn't expect that many people to do that. And in fact, biking around the country is less than 1%. So we really have to accept that where we are is where we are. And there are limits to growth. New York hit its limit. Its metro area is roughly 24 million. The city has peaked, stabilized at 8 million back over 50, 60 years now. We're going to hit a limit, and it's going to be based on transportation. We can't get there from here. We spend too long in the cars, and at some point people says, I'm not taking a job. I used to job hop a lot. I was a typical engineer and 3 years here, and it's kind of like project-based. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this where, project company staffs up for this big project they're doing, and it kind of winds down, and it's not going to lay you off, but it's going to get pretty boring because it's going to be maintenance mode. So you and the other guys find some other job. So 3 years here, 3 years there, and then I became a contractor, so it's 6 months here, 6 months there. And thank you. But what happened, and you cannot get there. I love public transit, but I can't use it. I cannot get from here to there because there's job centers here and there and everywhere. I end up going to Pleasanton. I can't take a bus, but that's where the contract is. I end up going to Redwood City, and I have to stay late, and the buses don't run after a certain hour. So public transit is not really viable. We have got to get something where we can use BART, that's one choice, and where we can accept that we have a limit to our growth. And that I would love for San Jose to develop, but we're getting pretty close to full. We have to accept there are limits to growth.
Thank you, Michael. Those are discussions. We heard a variety of perspectives that are thought-provoking today, and now we're open for the question and.
So, I got it late. I didn't do it.
Wait.
Mr. Khanna is leaving as the public is about to start speaking. Mr. Khanna?
Ma'am, she actually, ma'am? No, actually, Mr. O'Connor, he has another arrangement right after this.
Yes, he does, and you knew about it, so you should start the public. I know, you already know. No, I don't know. No, I don't want to hear other people. He's the one with the money. He's got the money.
That's okay. People are getting very emotional now.
What's the process?
We're going to have a mic runner here. Mooney, can you be the mic runner?
People who want to ask questions like that in the middle, that's way easier.
So, a little explanation from Mr. O'Connor. He said that in order for him to answer questions to answer your questions, you need to attend his town hall meeting. He said that because this town hall is not organized by his office, it's not proper for him to answer questions. So we are honored that he agreed to be here to give us opening remarks, but his office told us later that this is their policy. So I'm so sorry he couldn't answer questions.
You can email him at his office. He has an email address. You can
So
email.
he said that you can email him and his office. His office staff is really helpful. They attend all the community events. And also right after there is 4:30 there is an Indian dance at another Cupertino location, so he's running over there. So he didn't leave us intentionally. Originally he planned to be here until 4, but he stayed until 4:30 to really listen to all the city council members ask for transportation funding. So
Any of your congressional people can be emailed at their offices either in Washington or here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Let's get started.
So I got here a little bit late, didn't hear the beginning, but I did hear, when the province, very little land in which to build on. You're talking about cramming people in. A great example of one of the problems was the Balco proposal. Originally, it was touted as an idea for retail and housing, okay? The final proposal ended up being 60% office space. We don't have land to build on, we can't build more affordable housing unless it's high density. You want to limit growth, you want to cap, reach our limit and, kind of cut it off. Stop building office space. We don't need any more office space, especially when we got the big Apple project done. We got lots of open office space going to be happening in this immediate area. The transportation, the building, all of these issues should be handled regionally, not by city. The Balcon project was solely based in Cupertino with no outreach to Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, or San Jose, which makes up 2/3 of the residents in the 2-mile impact zone. We just stop building office space. That'll limit growth.
Is that a question or a comment?
It's a comment.
My name is Kathy Hubbard, so a lot of people know me as a big troublemaker. And I don't mind saying that I am, and I don't care what anybody says here, I will speak when I want to. You all talk about transit and housing and all this. You better start thinking about Lehigh Southwest Cement Quarry up there and the Stevens Creek Quarry, because once you people start growing, and it's gonna grow, let's face it, all right, let's face it. They're going to put in a treatment plant right now, okay? And it's not gonna be a good thing, so get on the web and look that up. The other thing I wanna talk about here is, if they put in a new pit up there, we're doomed here. It's not just the cars, it's not just the congestion, it's that doggone cement plant that I've been fighting for 12 years. I want the help of everybody in this room. Get yourselves together. Santa Clara County is ready to give them a treatment plant, all right? And we cannot have that here. There are people I live in a little cul-de-sac, six houses. 4 of them rent out rooms to pay their mortgage. 4 of them. The community's turning into a rooming house community. It's not single family anymore. We're growing. It can't be stopped. Mayor Cupertino has done a tremendous job. Tremendous trying to get this stopped. God help them. No judge would allow them to do their job and to give them what they needed. They were swindled by the city. Swindled. Okay? That's right, swindled. And the city got away with it. We need to all get together and do something about the transit. The transit company, they have no money. Roe has the money. That is who we should have been bothering the hell out of today, excuse me. Okay, if you don't believe me, call the transit people up yourself. Go to their meetings. Try to get them to get more money to do what they have to do. This lady over here knows what she's talking about. You know what you're talking about. I'm glad you're there. Thank you, please. Okay, I want to give other people a chance to talk, but please get involved in doing something about the pollution at the Lehigh Southwest Cement Quarry, please.
Thank you. By looking at how many people are lining right now, I'm going to set the time limit for each person, maybe 2 minutes. Good? Thank you.
I'm really nervous speaking here, so I apologize if my voice is shaking. This is something that's really
It's okay.
important to me and near and dear to my heart. But I have something I want to read. My name is Diana Johnson. I live in West San Jose. I'm grateful to my council member Jones and Representative Khanna for being here. I work as a social worker for Sunnyvale School District. And my husband works as an attorney at a tech company in Mountain View. We have a toddler and 2 elementary-age children who attend John Muir, part of the Cupertino School District. We love our neighborhood. Our children are happy at their school. We desperately want to buy a home in the Lynbrook area. But for every dollar I save for a down payment, housing prices go up 10. Other young families have expressed the same dilemma as me. I implore my representatives to approve more residential developments. We and our children cannot be the future of this vibrant economy here in the South Bay if we cannot afford to live here. We will take our skills and our taxes and move elsewhere.
I'd like to, first of all, everyone here was invited to speak because we are, so to speak, for residents. But we need to get, I hear your complaint all the time. There's city councilmen on all the councils who are very concerned with this. But I want to reiterate what I said. If building more housing made it cheaper, Hong Kong would be, and New York and Lower Manhattan would be really cheap, and they're not. The solution, the solution is that the Bay Area companies have got to, spread out more so that people, it is not so dense. Density builds cost. It's that simple. You are asking for something you can't have. You want higher density and lower cost. It doesn't work. Sorry.
Okay, can I respond as well?
Next one?
So one thing I'd like to see in the Bay Area in general, and Cupertino specifically, is more for sale senior housing. Because a lot of people that want to stay in the community and have big houses, and their kids have graduated from the schools, they want to stay, but they don't want to become renters. And we have some good examples. The Forum up at San Antonio is a great example of for sale senior housing, and that sort of thing frees up housing in town for younger families. And we've seen turnovers in housing before, because a lot of CUSD schools closed because older people stayed and their kids were done, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, there was a huge turnover of the housing stock, and all these schools had to reopen. So I would like to see more for sale affordable housing for seniors as one way of doing it.
Okay, I live in Cupertino. I want to make put out a few ideas. I'm addressing the people here because I really wanted to hear more from the people here and have more of a dialogue. But I appreciate what you all said. So toll roads are a dead end. We need to use the toll lanes for public transportation. Let's extend the light rail on Highway 85 all the way to Mountain View. Let's get this done, put this in the works now. One of the ways we can do this is the financing. Let us have public banks like they do in North Dakota. I think for about 50 years, it's the only bank that made it without, big bank that made it without public subsidy in 2007, 2008. We can do that. We can have a Cupertino bank, we can have a California bank, we can have a Santa Clara bank. If we did this, for example, the Bay Bridge, which, what was it, $300 billion or something? It would have cost approximately half with public financing. That would hugely increase our ability to do public transportation. So, of course, we need BART around the Bay. I have a thing about this because Halliburton was allowed to get the contract for BART, and as far as I understand, and I could be wrong, the gauge of the railroad, the road bed for BART is not compatible with Caltrans. Think if it was, we could just extend Caltrans to BART and bring it down all around the Bay. We need to do that. This is doable. We just need to put our priorities here. Everybody knows about sitting on the freeways. Okay, we can have a public BART or Caltrans station as part of Balco's reconfiguration. And let's just do this.
Men, thank you. Can we go for the next one?
Addressing Chappie Jones' comments that I didn't hear good responses from the other panelists. You made two statements that many of us regard as disingenuous and infuriating. One is that Bay Area is so special we have to let the tech companies expand here roughly without limit. But if we don't, the Bay Area is so unspecial that they'll just pick up and move anywhere right away. And the second was that increasing supply decreases growth. It was referenced, but my economics is that increasing supply decreases price. But my economics was price is a factor of supply and demand. And it doesn't matter how much you increase supply, if demand grows faster, you're increasing price. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I come to you as a child of this community. I was born in Mountain View, and I went to Stevens Creek Elementary School, Kennedy Junior High, and Monte Vista High School. For a lot of the children I grew up with, the Bay Area has been in a place of exceptional opportunity. However, only one of the children that I graduated with from Monte Vista High School 15 years ago has come back to Cupertino, and she only came back, even though she has a great degree from UCSD and works at Qualcomm, is because she moved into her parents' house. In fact, the problem is so bad that Cupertino Unified is projecting enrollment declines, which will destabilize the district's funding base because families with young children, like this woman, can no longer afford housing in the city. And if one of the best public school systems in this country is projecting declining enrollment, you know that something is going terribly wrong. So I have a warning for everyone in this room. If you stay on this path, your children will not be able to come back for you. They will not be able to take care of you. They will not be able to afford to live near you. So here are my questions for each of three of you. Lydia Koo, you talked about action behind words, but you led an effort to kill Maybell, to kill 60 low-income housing units for seniors, and that plan was instead replaced with 16 single-family homes, which will probably sell for over $2 million each. You're a real estate agent. You own multiple homes in Hawaii. You profit off of this housing crisis. And for Stephen Sharp, you oppose teacher housing. And this group has only supported Valco if it's retail only, but retailers are declining and closing at the fastest pace in American history this year. Hold on, let me finish. And Michael Goldman, you have said that building more won't lead to reduced housing prices, but Manhattan and Sunnyvale are the exact same square mileage and city size. And Manhattan housing prices today on Zillow, the median home price there is $1.24 million, and the median home price in Sunnyvale is $1.47 million. So it is more expensive to buy a home in Sunnyvale than it is in Manhattan.
Thank you, ma'am. Lydia, you want to respond?
My Thai Cutler, your facts are wrong and they're lies. They're misleading. First and foremost, I do not own multiple homes on Hawaii. I wish I did. I own one home which I live in Palo Alto, which I worked very hard with my husband in order to purchase because we wanted our children to go to school in Palo Alto, and they finished school in Palo Alto, so I'm grateful for that. But we worked hard for it. And while I understand affordable housing, I also, a very practical and pragmatic person, making my choices and plans based on common sense. The 60 low-income senior homes that my Thai Cutler is referring to was on a safe route to school street where thousands of children used to go to school, and it was going to have the seniors who are low income go to a mile away to Planned Parenthood for their doctor visits. And then Planned Parenthood for their doctor visits. And then they were going to be walking down the street where there were broken sidewalks to go to Walgreens for their groceries. What kind of dignity is that for senior low-income housing? There are better places for low-income senior housing than where it was going to plopped into. So, and on top of that, the the developers were going to use 15 market-rate homes in order to develop this property. And it was spot zoning. The city decided to give that zoning, upzoning, before they had a public hearing. So I would really appreciate not providing alternative facts and actually finding out exactly what you're talking about.
Is this working or not?
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
There were several other alternative facts in that statement. First of all, I never opposed teacher housing. I would love teacher housing. What I would not like to do is to take away a campus that will be needed for future growth for the school. I'm sure people are aware that school enrollment goes up and down. Sometimes the enrollment goes down, it goes back up again. We lost a lot of school campuses. We lost Wilson Park and Creekside Park and Jollyman Park. They all had schools. We closed a bunch of other schools that were then reopened, and we can't be foolish and give these campuses away to developers to build housing. We should pay teachers more so they can build housing. And we should build teacher housing where it's practical. And then the second, another alternative fact was about Valco and retail. I prepared a presentation, it's not up on any website yet, but these facts that the developer is pushing out about retail dying are so wrong. If you go all around the Bay Area, if you look at San Bruno and Tanforan, if you look at Serramonte and Daly City, Westgate and San Jose, if you look at Southland and Hayward, and the reason Valco is dead is because we've never had an owner who wanted to make it successful. They dream about 2 million square feet of office, and they send people to city council meetings that work with the developer to make these speeches about how if we don't build Valco, our kids will be on drugs, and it's all bull. So don't fall for the developers' talking points that they send out to everybody. Please, be smarter.
Here, to be respectful for all the panelists here. I know everybody's getting very emotional at this point, and I totally understand because these are hot buttons, and that everybody has to deal with it every day. You don't have a housing, you have to commute long hours to work. But we really appreciate, all the city council members. They want to come here during the Sunday afternoon and share their thoughts with us. So please be respectful.
Thank you. Since I was specifically named, I want to talk a little about, very briefly. If you're going to compare housing in Manhattan with housing here, it should be like against like. I don't know exactly, but 1.2 million sounds about right. It'll get you a condo in a nothing special building with 2 bedrooms, maybe 900 square feet. It'll have typically a condo monthly fee of about $1,000 to $1,500. You're comparing that with a single-family house with a backyard in front, and it's simply property taxes. So you got apples to apples, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we go to the next one, please?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to express my agreement with the main point that Mr. Goldman has been making, that there's a difference between maximum development and optimum development. And as Khanna has said, there are many underdeveloped areas in this country. Maybe we should think as a country. Now, as far as affordable housing is concerned, the reason I live in a condo, and by law, 7% of our units have to be below market. Why is this not true of rental housing? It has nothing to do with the federal constitution or the state constitution. It has to do with laws that are made in Sacramento. Now, why doesn't the leadership of Bay Area cities, why doesn't ABAG, instead of pressuring us, pressure Sacramento? If you're going to build rental housing and you're going to rent for market rate housing 2 bedrooms at $4,000 a month, you must build some BMR units, and the city should have the right to do it. And they should not have to offer density bonuses. This is not a taking. They're making a fortune. Why don't you do this? Why don't you put pressure on Sacramento?
Or require a percentage of all housing to be going in.
Well, condos already are.
And
it works.
I
We
can't-
don't know who the people, and this will also mean less segregation because the lower income people will just be integrated into normal housing instead of being put isolated in projects.
I don't know about other cities, but
Because there are still people waiting, can we just take a couple of questions at a time? Can we go for the next?
Thank you. For those who don't know me, I live in the neighboring city of Santa Clara, right on the border with Cupertino. I went to Monte Vista High, grew up here. I'm probably one of the few that actually live adjacent to the city. Not one person in my high school class resides in Cupertino anymore, not one. It's primarily due to the high cost of housing here. So we have some real challenges, and I know there's real pushback by the community because of it. I would like the panelists to respond to several suggestions that I've heard about. One, tying housing growth to job growth. Tying sales tax to population. So rather than projects that do not serve the community or the residents that grew up here, to have incentives not only for office or retail, but for housing for the people that grow up in the community. Now, I would like the panelists also to touch on, because I've been asked this multiple times, expansion of light rail. What I've been told is that any expansion of light rail would require additional density to be justified. And projects like Valco, I would like to see a more balanced project, because I did go to Valco, can remember when Valco wasn't here, and would like to see a more balanced project between retail, housing, and office. If the group comment on some of my suggestions, I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just tackle the first one. For San Jose, we are trying to tie jobs to housing. As my percentage, 0.84 tells you that we're not doing a good job. But we're trying to, really make an effort to match that housing growth with job growth. But we're so far behind the curve in terms of job creation, as well as all the pressure that we're getting in terms of being able to provide housing for our residents, that it's very difficult. But I just want to let you know that that is an objective for the city, to tie those two together.
For 17 years, I have been fighting high-rise, high-growth, high-density because I've lived in Cupertino for 45 years. Cupertino is an island surrounded by Santa Clara, San Jose, Saratoga, Los Altos, Sunnyvale. Whatever we do, we're affected by everyone else as well. The one thing I want to ask city council people is a huge 180-degree change. Instead of the state demanding that we do things, I think it's time for the city councils to demand the state do things. Affordable housing is getting worse despite the excuses of keep on building more housing. Every time we build more housing, the prices seem to be going up even though we've asked for affordable housing. Traffic is getting worse, quality of life is getting worse. And I want to ask the audience, I don't want an answer, but I think we're all familiar with it. How many of you have seen buses going to and from San Francisco? People live where they want to live. They don't necessarily live where they're going to work. So please wise up and know that people have a choice too. Chappie, this is for you. You had said you're going to have 400,000 more people coming in. We've just finished a drought. We're in a drought-prone area. We're going to have more droughts. Where is your infrastructure before we allow all these people in? Get the water in here so we don't have to be restricted, we don't have to cut back. I also would like to see the transportation coming, but make life better now before you start adding and making it worse later. Not specifically you, but the governments out there.
I'm not taking
Can I answer the question? Let me finish, then I'll be quiet. If we don't address more housing, everything is going to be getting worse. That's what the saying has been. Well, we're getting worse and adding more housing. I agree with you, and I wish you'd been here a long time ago. There are limits to growth. Thank you. Bye.
So I just say that San Jose is going to grow by 400,000 people. 250,000 are our children and grandchildren. They're people that are born here. And I know that, there's a sentiment that, we can't afford to have any more growth or development. And in my mind, I'm just flashing that my children are never going to leave home. They're going to live with me forever. Even when they form their own families, they're going to live with me. That growth is not just people coming in to find jobs. It's our family. It's the people that we love that we want to be near us, to take care of us. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I know that I want my kids to take care of me in my later years, even though they swear they're not. But I want them to be around close by. And if we don't build the housing, they're going to have to move to other places.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to, my name is Kurt Martin. I appreciate you guys being here today. I have a couple of just comments that I heard. Some of the growth figures that Chappie's referencing. It's not just people coming in. That's the people that are living here, aging in place. So seniors are going to make up 1 out of every 4 people in our community in the next 15 years. And if you don't think that's a real concern, think about how capable is your current city, how capable our current city is able to handle our senior communities, and what are we doing to address that? And I would suggest that the single-family sprawls that we have cannot accommodate the communities that we actually need going forward and the kind of density that we require. So I do hope that the needs that we have are weighed with the current kind of needs and requirements that we have today, but our future needs and the people that aren't here. Like, how many millennials are here in the audience? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, great. I see a lot of, I bet the median age here is about 55, 60. And we're in a unique area in the sense that we've never lived this long before as a human species, especially in these urban areas. And what are we doing to support that growth long term? I would further suggest that we think about potentially the city and county of Santa Clara rather than just these competing cities for each other. I know nobody wants to talk about that because all the other cities except San Jose make plenty of money without the housing burdens and the boat anchors that housing actually provides. And lastly, since you guys are the elected officials, why aren't we reaching out to the brain trust that we have? We're the innovation capital of the world. Why aren't we asking the people that are here that make up our communities to come together and help solve these problems rather than just the few elected officials that we have? We have some of the most impressive talent in the world that people wish they had, and the wealth that's generated here. Yet I don't see anybody tapping the wealthy and the people with resources and the brains that have made that wealth themselves, helping solve these problems. I appreciate all you guys up there, but there's a lot more people out here that we're not tapping into, and I hope you guys can convene some kind of council or grassroots community thing that can actually do that.
Thank you.
If I might just quickly respond, as all of you know, it's been announced that I am a realtor, so I have worked with a lot of different age groups, and one of the largest growing age group are the millennials, and they are moving into suburban towns, especially those that has good schools. So they're looking for those housing that has a single family home with a backyard, with parking, with good schools. And guess what? They're also buying little vans, and they're buying cars, and they're not using bicycles or public transportation because they want to be available when their children has recitals or reading class that they can get to in the middle of the day. So, we have different stages in life that we go through. There is the time when we're young and we can hop from one place to another, on trains, on bicycles, whatever. But there are the time when we start having families that we have to think beyond ourselves and the fun and the holiday and finding ourselves. So let's understand their development stages. And yes, my community is an aging community. And that's why I want to be sure that there's affordable housing in different groups. But overall, my community is a suburban town.
So I want to address the senior housing. Long before I was on the council, there was a development in Cupertino Main Street, and we met with the developer over and over again, and we hashed out what was acceptable, and we agreed put in senior housing. We will support you for senior housing. And we all sang Kumbaya and everybody was happy. Then all of a sudden, the city council said, the developer came and said, oh, I don't know how to do senior housing. And the council said, oh, that's too bad. Just make it into non-restricted housing. So we lost all those senior units. We've got to find a way to do the kind of housing that seniors want to live in. And that will free up some other housing for the millennials to live in as well. So I would love to see that happen in Cupertino. But we have to be firm. The city councils have to be really firm, because we have to be telling developers what to do. They shouldn't be telling us what to do.
May I please speak? I've waited a long time.
Go ahead,
My comment is to follow up on Mr. Jones. And first of all, let me please respectfully say thank you to all of you for being here. And also thank you to all of you. So we all gave up Sunday afternoon. So as I was standing in line, I thought, do I want to give my comment to the council members or to my fellow city dwellers? And actually, it's to this lovely young lady in the front row who made a comment about affordable housing. And Mr. Jones, I'm just going to make the statement because I'm a little confused and I don't want my fellow residents to be. So I am very well aware, as you know me, you've let me bend your ear. I'm aware of WAC and I'm aware of the Stevens Creek Action Committee and group and so forth. And there are members from that group here today, and I thank you for coming. I've attended several of those meetings. And so what I need you to know, and for all of us to understand, and this is where I was a little disappointed in the way that you phrased it, as we're talking about potential developments along the Stevens Creek corridor, such as the Fort Bay development, which they are proposing 7 stories. It morphs and it changes, but right now I think that's what we're looking at. These are all apartments. These are not ownership. We're also talking about Garden City, which is a mega structure. It's morphing because of the different interests between commercial and residential. Absolutely nothing is being allocated for affordable housing. So I need us all to understand, this is what I really kind of want to call you on, because as you started to share with us and you kind of scooched in the affordable housing comment there, we all need to really be honest with ourselves and one another, as Ro mentioned, to be transparent with us. This isn't going to help you unless you are an Apple employee. I've talked to, and this is why I encourage all of us, get involved, attend these meetings. It is the only way that you will see the devil in the details. I won't advocate what your opinions are, but come and get informed. I've spoken to the consultants. I've spoken to, folks in San Jose City. I've talked to the consultant unequivocally. Unless something's changed, there's no affordable housing. It's for Apple employees, and I've been told as much. So
Thank you. Let's take another.
First of all, thank you. First of all, while you are checking, no, I just want to, first of all, thank you for her engagement. She really has been involved, and she brings up a great point. If we have these vehicles here for community input, get involved. Make your voices heard. As far as affordable housing is concerned, San Jose has a housing impact fee of $17 a square foot. So all those new developments are going to be required to pay that fee that goes towards affordable housing. I actually am advocating for building that affordable housing on site and not having the developer pay into a fund that goes to an affordable housing project somewhere else. And I brought that up in council. I've been advocating for that, and I think that to have a vibrant community, you're going to need to have the Apple employees, along with your auto mechanic, along with your teacher, along with your fireman, all living in the same community. And if we don't have that affordable housing built on site, we're not going to have that kind of vibrant community. So I just wanted to publicly state my position on that.
And you need to quadruple that fee. $17? That is not nearly enough.
Yes.
So, this is
Let's take the next person, please.
Prabir Mohanty. I've been living in Cupertino for 18 years. This is Prabir Mohanty. I've been living in Cupertino for 18 years, very involved. I've been also, people like Mike Khanna have taken my input, including White House at one time. Khanna and Mike Khanna, including White House, have taken my inputs, and I've been involved in the community. I know, quite a bit about what's going on. I'll take a different, I have a different kind of question. New York City has these developers coming in, and Michael Bloomberg, when he was mayor, who did a fantastic job in rebuilding New York City, found out that a lot of this money coming into the builders from Middle East, from India, from China, from other Asian countries, from Philippines, from Latin America, were laundered money, were money that were, from mafia, from drug lords and so on. And we have a developer here, who is a notorious developer, like people say. They promise senior housing, then they morph it into regular housing, then apartment buildings, then they build office space. And then they put all that drainage into Stevens Creek or into some other street that's happening in the intersection of Deandra and Stevens Creek. So how do we keep this kind of a builder, shady builder, who is spending $7 million to promote their 2 million square feet office space, promising roof garden in the sky at 15 floor up, out, and build affordable housing, senior housing, regular housing for residents, for teachers, and so on. And this builder has been attacking Cupertino. They have their lobbyists, and people have found out some of these lobbyists have got $300,000 and so on. And how do we keep such people out? We need to look into their funding, and if they are tearing apart cities after cities like Sandhill Property is doing, we need to put a stop on them, check on them. This, as people said, this area has some of the best and brightest people.
Thank you.
Personally, I've been involved in 2 companies going.
I have to announce that we have about 6 minutes left. We extended the meeting by 15 minutes, so let's be concise and short in your message. Yes.
Yeah, one question, 2 parts. I'm the citizen of the Cupertino for 14 years, but I think we could learn a good thing from Plato. Recently, the news from San Jose Mercury, there's a report about a mega developer was fined by Cupertino over building some grocery, which is a promise but did not deliver. That's my question is, part 1 is, could you comment on the situation now for the fine? Did they pay the fine? Second part is, I have been observing the past couple of years, I think the Cupertino City Council quite, to my point of view, spineless, because they listen to the developer. For example is Main Street. So Steve brought a very good point. They promise one thing at the time they want to get approved, and then when they deliver, I don't know how to build a senior house, something like that. Of course, and then from your point of view, could you share some experience how to deal with those ill-behaved developer or non-compliant developer?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's the same developer.
Oh, yeah.
It is the same developer that she's referencing to. And I have to confess, all of this came in before I started in city council. However, when we were campaigning, a lot of us was asked what we would do if we would agree to the fine. And yes, we did agree that it needs to be significantly increased and increased immediately. And so at this point, I do know that the judge or the person who was overseeing this case did fine and agree to the $5,000 in fines, and actually it's quite hefty, and we're moving forward with that. Of course, the developer is going to be perhaps looking into appealing it, so that's something that we have to kind of work with also. However, during the campaign, one of the things that I did say was that, if this developer has a reputation of consistently doing this kind of action, then the city should have a way of restricting his next building. And so I think if this developer has done one, what's that saying? First time, shame on, and then fool me twice, shame on me. So I think that we should live by that and not let him fool us that many times.
I just want to say one fast thing. I am told by the city staff of Sunnyvale that if a multi-family building goes up, No one in the city has any legal authority to say whether it's going to be a condo or an apartment. So, yeah, I would love more condos. We are missing the middle. We've got, single-family homes, we've got apartments, but I can't make them do it, what they do that. The other thing I want to mention is everyone's talking about below market rate housing. Nothing's free. If the builder is going to put in, as is required in Sunnyvale, 1/8 of the housing or equivalent fee for below market rate, he's going to raise the rents on the others because he's got bank payments to make, just like everyone else. So what you're doing is you're creating a few houses, a few below market rate housing. You're chasing out 2 people for every one you're housing, and the waiting list, as I said, is years. Welcome to the big city. It is very expensive here. If we looked like Manhattan, you would not be surprised, but we don't. We look like the suburbs, and we're not. Thank you.
Next.
3 things you don't want to hear in 1 minute or less. 1, growth. I'm opposed to it. When I was born 74 years ago, the population was 2.4 billion people. It has tripled in my lifetime, which is why I chose not to have any children. Second thing, affordable housing. It exists. I was in Fresno last week. You can buy an amazingly good home for $250,000. Problem is, who wants to live in Fresno? Third thing, transportation. We've been working on this for over 30 years with an autonomous highway. Now we have autonomous cars that will be coming out. What we really need is autonomous taxis. And you get rid of one of your cars, or 2 of them. And that's it.
I first want to congratulate all of you because you took the courage to come here because you knew we are dealing with a very explosive topic. So you might have your own views, you might differ with each other, but I would say from as a citizen that I think you are brave enough to be able to present yourself here. The thing that I'm trying to, I want to imply is that there is no way this can be solved at a city level, at a county level, unless there is something coming from the top. And I agree with that observation that you have made regarding that. And this is a systems problem. And I don't understand why we have unelected bodies like MTC, which do not understand this issue at all. So I think even if we have representatives on the board, it doesn't really cut it. We need to have a mechanism by which we first solve the infrastructure problem before we solve the housing problem. Please do not, this is putting the cart before the horse, and I think that's not the right approach to go.
Thank you.
There's still people behind me. Okay, quick. This is a quantitative problem. That's a quantitative solution. Very, very simple. Growth rate will dictate the population growth. 10% steady growth rate will cause a doubling in population, 70 divided by n. 5% growth rate, the population will double every 14 years. Very simple. Nothing you can do about it. Now, what you need in order to solve this, first of all, I believe in 0 growth rate as being the solution, but you can't have that. You can have as close to that as possible. You need concise planning. You will not get that from developers. Developers are in there for a profit. That means you must dictate planning. Unfortunately, that isn't politically convenient. And I'm pointing the finger at you guys. Until you take control of this and allow for utilization of the people that are available to do proper planning, nothing will come of this. No transportation, no housing, but the game is rigged. City council dictates who sits on the committees and who gets involved, and nothing's going to come of this. It is politically convenient to allow the developers to finance the city in this fashion. The developers will not come in with a project like this unless they have the solution in hand the way they want it. And you can have all the town meetings that you want. The fact of the matter is, you guys are not doing your jobs.
One thing I have to say, when you think of the city council, don't think dictator on a white horse, think herding cats. You know, the other 6 are wonderful people, they're great, they're intelligent, but none of us agree on everything.
Let's go for the next.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. We, I think, need a systems engineering approach. Like when we design systems, we need to look at all ecosystem approaches. For example, don't shoot me, I think the corporations have a lot of money. Apple has $200 billion. They have, so they're bringing in people, like Facebook is bringing right next to Menlo Park. So they should be able to infuse money somehow indirectly to solve problem of housing their people. So we need to do outside, what do you call it, out of the normal thinking. Boeing used to call it 10x thinking. You need to think about 10 times better than what is today. And it is not, it is not like, oh, foreign countries, they have corporate housing and all that. That's not the issue. Here is, who needs the housing? The people the companies that come here and create imbalance and causes, people that don't have houses, apartment builders, they kick them out, they build big houses, it's that. But, we all deserve to live a decent life. So there is, I'm driving down on 237 and all that today, from Khanna, even somewhere else. There's plenty of land. There are companies that can build cities. We need a new Palo Alto, we need a new Sunnyvale, but we shouldn't go and build apartments right in front of a $2 million house and then get 40 to 100 people that need to move around. So I am for slow growth. I am for innovative growth, and let's do it. Let's do a systems engineering approach. It's a very sexy word. When you say that, you get $100,000 salary. So it's nothing to do with you guys. It's always going to be there. We're all going to be different. So systems engineering. Think about it.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. It's great to hear from all the panelists as well as all the attendees. Everyone make the time to come here. So first of all, I just want to clarify the speaker over there who mentioned about CUSD lower enrollments. I just want to let you know that that is the superintendent's talking point. That is not the fact. So I suggest that you do your homework and talk to the parent and the community to find out more. She's fired, she's gone, thank God. So now I'm also on the Stevens Creek Urban Village Advisory Council. I've been working with quite a few people here, members. We've been, discussing all these complicated issues in the past 9 months. Talked about a solution, potential solutions, and so on and so forth. And I have lived and traveled to a lot of different places. I think that the topics that we're discussing today are really complex, and it's all interrelated. We can't just solve one problem without solving the other problems. Transportation needs to get going, and I agree with Lydia, who mentioned that the problem with transportation agency is that there are too many of them, and they don't talk to each other. And I think it's the same thing with the cities in this region. Everybody's filing lawsuits against each other, but we're not sitting at the table and talking about potential solutions. Let's look at Oregon. Look at Portland. I mean, they have a nice light rail that travels around the city. It's Portland. Why can't we do it here?
Lower density.
Lower density. Right, I mean, there are so many countries and cities that can do it. I would encourage all the city agencies, representatives to work with state, kind of like think about regional efforts and really fully engaging the community members at the grassroots level, because there's some amazing and intelligent people in our community. So I think we can come up with all these solutions. And one last thing that I want to mention is that when it comes to affordable housing, one of the developers is actually in Mountain View. It's building affordable housing, but the Mountain View City Councils make them do it. So it goes both ways, right? So anyway.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. I know we've been talking about housing, but as a millennial, I'm going to steer the conversation if that's okay. So as a student and an activist that works in social justice, every day I watch my peers who belong to discriminated groups like the LGBT, my undocumented friends, my Black friends, and homeless and other marginalized communities. I watch them struggle, and I watch them live in a way that, most people don't get to see. So to even address these issues like housing and transportation in the first place, I think it's really important that people feel safe to even live in these cities. So I want to ask what direct actions that you guys are taking, what personally, like not just we support you, but what actions are you planning to take to help these groups feel more safe? Because I heard someone laugh in the back, but it's different when you actually see the way people struggle and when you actually see the way people live. And it's not something to laugh at when you watch people not live in houses and when you watch people actually fear for their life because of their skin color, because where they live. So I'm just asking out of, not as an attack, but just like out of concern.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. This is a very good issue, but as we are approaching the end of our panel session, I think...
we can respond.
Okay. Quickly, please.
Okay, so I think my kids went to Cupertino High School, and I was so thrilled that it is so diverse. And I worked... Okay. The diversity, because I worked with marching band, we had Indian, Caucasian, Chinese, Korean, and I don't know why the person thinks it's very funny, but it's true. Some high schools in Cupertino may not be diverse. And I also participated in Challenge Day, which is very moving because the kids that have been marginalized are invited, and we hear their life stories, and it's very tearful, and it's very moving, and you don't realize that in a city like Cupertino, that there are these teens that have serious issues with their families and with their friends, and that can be suicidal, and it's really important that we realize that everything is not perfect in the city, and that we take action to bring people of different ethnicities together like that. And I'm proud my daughter graduated from UC Santa Cruz. She moved to Philadelphia and is working for social justice, a charity called Repair the World, which is a big task to repair the world, especially now. And I would just encourage more teens when they finish college to think about doing something like that and take their gap year and go off and try to help solve these problems. Thank you.
So, you asked about social justice and how not to be afraid. So I'm an immigrant.
Can I clarify? I meant like, what are you doing?
What am I doing? So personally, I'm not going to speak for my city because my city actually does have a resolution in terms of being a inclusive and safe, diverse city. However, for myself, because I am an immigrant myself, when I came to America, specifically to Palo Alto, I was actually discriminated against. And especially painful to me is when you have a child that you take to a Jamboree class, and the mother, who was a Caucasian, turned around, and when they were starting to crawl towards each other to play, I still remember very vividly, the mom turned around and took her baby and went and took her baby to somewhere else to crawl, because perhaps she didn't want to play with my baby. But that is very painful for me. And then in addition to that, I volunteer a lot with my school, with my daughter's school, and even after she moved on, I continue to volunteer, developing the kids, whether it's boys or girls, in order to let them to see how the world is, and how working together as a team, it helps out. It doesn't matter whether they are, what their sexual orientation is, whether they're black, whether they're Indian, because you know what, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. Further, I also work with La Comida in my community. I volunteer over there to serve lunches to the seniors. It's a low-income, nutritious lunch. And I work over there because I want to be able to hear what the seniors are thinking, what they're going through, so that I am aware of what their life is like. And you know, they're very grateful people. They do not take anything for granted. They do not think they're entitled to that free lunch or for the services. They thank us profusely for volunteering over there. And the thing is, you know, they're in bad health, things have happened to them. So it is what it is, and they accept that, and they're thankful for it. And then last but not least, I do rent out one of my rooms to a person who is looking for a job, who had lost their job, and so they can only pay very low rent. So I do rent out one of my rooms to help them out at a very low rent just to pay electricity and water. So I do my part in those small ways. It's not enough to solve the problem, and I wish to God I could do more. But the thing is, there's only limitations to it. So that's what I do.
I'll be real brief. The city of San Jose, the mayor and council have come out with proclamations and statements supporting the rights of minorities, special groups, individuals who are, experiencing discrimination, and so it's very public. San Jose has been very public on that. Individually, or specifically to me, it's in my DNA. I grew up on an all-black street in an all-white neighborhood because that was the only street that we were allowed to live on. I remember driving to the South in the early 70s, where my father refused to stop in Alabama and Mississippi. He just didn't want to stop because he was afraid. He was afraid for his family. So it's in my DNA in terms of being sensitive to the rights and the needs of groups that have experienced hardship. One specific thing that I've done is I try to bring people together, because a big part of it is, if you're going to try to change the hearts and minds of individuals or people, you have to have a dialogue. So one thing real quick that I did is I organized a session with some members of the San Jose Police Department and 8 African American young men. And we had a 4-hour session where those young men were able to explain their life experience and their stories and their feelings. And those police officers were able to do the same thing. And at the end of that session, everybody walked away from it with a better sense of our humanity. And that we're all people, we all have the same feelings and needs and desires and wants. So that's just one specific example of what I'm trying to do to change hearts and minds.
At the moment, I'm pretty busy. Over the years, starting in college, I tutored. I just walked into black middle school near my college. I sincerely believe education is the way out for everyone. And I've tutored on Indian reservations and in black areas and in Hispanic areas. At the moment, I'm kind of busy, but that is one thing. The other thing is I'm an old FDR liberal, and he attacked inequality by trying to raise everyone. It was a difficult time. There was a Supreme Court justice who had been a member of the Klan. The Klan was a powerful force in the politics at the time. You do what you can given the situation, and we have to raise. We have a lot of inequality. The U.S. is one of the most unequal countries in the industrialized world. We do what we can. We need to raise the entire level. I really think the FDR approach of raising everyone's vote is the best way to help. Thanks.
Thank you. I would encourage you to go to Khanna's next town hall meeting on May 7th. And you can go to his congressional website for more details here. Thank you for your comments. And I think the next Better Cupertino town hall meeting is going to be about Valco Mall. So stay tuned.